Okay. Got it.
Okay. So hi, nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you, Heather.
To start off with, would you like to say your name and where you are?
My name is Nancy Andino, and I am in Union, New Jersey right now.
Okay. And the first big question is, who are you as a human being? And that can be anything you want to share about yourself, maybe in terms of some of your passions or qualities or some of the values that you might hold.
Okay.
Just whatever you
I
want to.
am a human that is passionate. I am a human that likes to laugh out loud with no no problem if I'm heard across the street. I am very authentic. I practice being authentic and practice being empathic and practice being non-judgmental on a regular basis. And I can be challenging and outspoken and funny, and um, I enjoy the work I do. And now Choco wants to be part of this. But I think that's the type of human that I am. I'm very caring. And I give tough love and affectionate love and mushy love.
Puppy love down there too, right?
And puppy love, yes.
Oh, nice. So a little bit about just a snapshot of your history. What would you say is an event in your life or a set of circumstances that somehow really shaped you or defined in some way who you are?
I would say growing up in part of my life in Puerto Rico with my family, and then coming to the United States and living in Brooklyn. I feel those transitions, right? And we moved quite a bit when we were younger, when I was younger. So it allowed me to adjust very quickly into new scenarios. But being raised in Brooklyn and in some of the very harshest neighborhoods, I think shaped me to be who I am right now, allowed me to learn how to own my space and create a balance between, as I got older, it doesn't have to be a space of just defenses. It was also a space of welcoming. So I feel like it allowed me to have a pretty good balance and with what I do now and how I provide my services now to the community that looks like me and how to move within worlds.
Okay. So I'm also interested in different aspects of yourself. And one of those would be how you experience and how you understand yourself in terms of gender or as a woman.
Mhm. I identify as a woman, and I feel that as a woman in my home, we were raised to be strong and outspoken, and we don't have to follow the rules. Those rules were not set up by us, so we don't have to follow them. And I feel that the impact came from my grandmother not following rules in Puerto Rico. She didn't give a damn about anybody. Like, no, I'm going to do this because I want to. And that was followed up with my mom. And it's kind of been, I feel that's shaped me to be the woman that I am today.
So, like, what kind of rules do you mean
So
there?
my grandmother was my abuela. She smoked by the time she was 12. She was wearing pants, red lipstick, dated. She didn't care. She like, I like this, so I'm gonna date this person and spend quality time with them. And I like that one too, and I'll do the same with them. So it wasn't really traditional household. Although she cooked and cleaned and did everything, the same with my mom. My mom never told me you're supposed to do this because you are a girl. No, you get to play around with the boys, you get to play in the dirt, you get to express yourself, make decisions. At the age of 5, she allowed me to make the decision whether I wanted to be participating in Bible study or if I wanted to be the catecismo and go to, the Catholic to get your baptism, not the baptism, what is it? confirmation and all that
Yeah,
stuff,
the first communion and all of that stuff.
communing and all that stuff.
Mhm.
She was like, I'm not interested. I'm only going because of my aunt has a store across the street and she sells pastelillos. And I will go and eat pastelillos, which is empanadas, right?
Mhm.
Across the street, and they will be talking and I'll be looking out the window, like waiting for the break to go get candy. And she allowed me to make my decision. Like, I'm not interested. She's like, bueno, okay, we'll go with that. And we'll just teach you at home about a higher power. But that's how I was raised, being able to speak my mind. And although it got me in trouble a lot, but not in trouble because I was speaking my mind, more of like how I was speaking it, like the tone of
Mhm.
voice, or if I was too animated with it. But it wasn't because you're not supposed to think that.
Okay. So it's interesting hearing, the grandmother and the mother and then you. How are you experiencing your age and that aging process?
Ha ha ha. Well, I'm 42 and I still feel like I was in my 20s. I feel more wiser and more mature, of course, but in reference to age I don't feel like it's defining me in any way. Separate from sometimes you wake up and your knees hurt, like, oh, that's different. But
That's new, yeah.
Yeah, okay, that was new. But
Mhm.
I don't feel like it's defining me in any way or how I move in this world or in my space.
And do other people see you differently over the passing of time, do you think, or
I don't know.
don't pay much attention to that?
My friends, I have a good I have a good tribe and we're all around the same age and we've known each other for decades, and it hasn't really been we acknowledge it like, wow, we're 40 or we're 42, but it doesn't feel that way. I feel like we've grown and matured together.
Fair. So, how would you say that you understand and experience power and privilege in your life?
I feel that I became more aware that actually doing my postgraduate Gestalt training and more aware of the role I played in it and how I wanted to be present, because it felt since it was a more intimate space, I stood out more. At that time, I had a big afro and the only one of me in the training, especially since I used to work in community settings. Like I used to run a methadone clinic in Fort Greene, Brooklyn, where the majority of people looked like me, were Black and Latino. Worked at a hospital in Harlem, where the majority of people being serviced looked like me. And one of the things that I realized the power is in how I speak to people and how I engage with them, my presence when we are together. My privilege is, I feel, in my ability to pay for things that maybe some of my colleagues were not able to pay for, to get additional training, to be exposed to and to different experiences. And although it may have felt uncomfortable at that time, I still allow myself to, like, nope, I have to, I gotta own it, because if I don't, I'm not going to be able to provide the services that I want to people that look like me. So I felt I took that as taking my power, being able to express myself in a way that I can be heard, and not judging myself for what I was feeling during those times. So it's kind of like giving myself permission to feel what I was feeling and speak
Mhm.
about
Hmm. Okay. And you mentioned in that Gestalt training, where did Gestalt come into your life? How did that happen?
it by chance. I didn't know anything about it.
Mhm.
I used to be, when I was running the methadone clinic, I used to do fee-for-service work at an agency. And I had a client that every time she would come see me, she would get very anxious in the waiting area because there used to be so many people. I always called them like Medicaid mills.
Mhm.
Every cookie cutter, CBT therapy being provided. And during our sessions, I used to do like breathing techniques. They just came from me. I was like, okay, let's do some breathing. That way we can ground you and see what your body's experiencing. And she will level down for the first 5 minutes, we will do that. And I was like, this is different. It's not what we train to do in our master's program, but it was working for her. And I would do it with other clients and the sessions will go a little bit better. So I started looking up like body sensations and, how does that work in therapy? And I came across Gestalt. And I was like, let me email and see. And I went to an introductory class and I was like, this is interesting. I wonder if this really works. And I
think we all wonder that. Does this really work?
Like, does this really work?
Is this a real thing?
Yeah. And that's why I started taking my power. I'm going to volunteer because I need to experience this. And I volunteered to be during the introduction to be the sample case, which is you have to actually have a real situation happening. And I felt my defenses and I felt the white man across from me was able to walk around it and welcome me and make me feel comfortable. I was like, mira este gringo. And I thought about it. And when I reached out, I was like, I'm going to do it. It was the day before classes was starting. You have to give your deposit. It's like, what? And start tomorrow. I was like, well, let me make this check and go. So privilege, power, ability to be able to, just write a check and start a training that's going to be 3 years plus or something with people that I've never met, never seen, don't know what I'm walking into. It's very intimate. So that's how I came across it. And then that's how I was introduced to it. Like, what the?
So you just really kind of jumped into that. And what did you end up finding? Like what was in that space or in that training for you?
I felt like it was challenging my beliefs, my existing beliefs at that time. It challenged my defenses. It challenged how I was present in new spaces. So it was a good challenge and I'm really glad I did it. I think it challenged me in a way where I was welcoming new experiences, although I was also fighting the new experiences at the same time. And I feel like my classmates at that time were very supportive on how for me to speak up and own my space. And it allowed us to have like a very intimate, our class was of 7 and we had a very intimate, powerful bond during that time. So I think that was a very good experience and a great introduction into a different space.
Now, when you say different space, are you speaking mostly sort of about theory and practice, or also you said you walked into space where there was nobody who looked like you?
Yeah. So more in reference to that, a different space where there was no one that looked like me. A different space in reference to training. We had never discussed postgraduate trainings. Where I went for my master's, one of the things they had told us, well, you chose to be a social worker, you didn't choose to make any money, right? Yes. This is coming from a professor. And it was made to feel as if it was very linear, right? You do either administrative, clinical, group, and that's all the options you have.
And either way, you join the ranks of the working poor, right? Like,
yes, either way, no matter which way you look at it, that's what it is. I felt like this experience allowed me like, that's not an option. I had already started in administration. which is a different form of social work. And it allowed me to be able to, like the clinical experience allowed me to be able to create change or influence change in the places I work with, which also caused a lot of frustration for the people and for myself, because I was very young at the time. But it also being in a space where everybody was an entrepreneur, right? They had their private practices and they were professors doing things that are more experiential. It allowed me to see a different aspect of it that I was not experiencing with my friends there. At that time, my friends, I was the only social worker in a group of people who have attorneys and IT and business. So I'm the one, the feeling person, and everybody else is the finance, definite black or white person, which I'm very black or white. There's been a lot of work in being able to live in a gray area as well.
That's funny, like you're actually sitting right between the black and white parts of the art behind you there.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sitting here going, okay, sort of the whole thing about the privileged space of psychotherapy training, and especially Gestalt trainings. Like there's sort of a vague awareness of how privileged it is, but I'd never heard anybody actually explain that, well, in these trainings, part of the difference is they teach you how to make money. And, you know,
without even saying it.
Like it comes with a business model, right? And it comes with a business model. But what sits different with me is when you are like, people were telling social workers that you weren't going to do that. It's like not even a possibility that you were going to have. And it's sort of like that self-perpetuating privilege is if you have the privilege to get in, then they'll tell you how to make money. Once you get into this new level of, yeah.
That sometimes in our spaces, you just stumble upon it.
Yeah.
Right? Because when you're getting your master's, it's more of like this. But once you choose to go postgraduate, it's kind of like, this is a different world. And not everybody has that privilege to do that.
Because you're working to try and make the money, right?
Yes. And if you're working at an agency as just a social worker at an agency, your salary, there's you can get extra money if you do fee for service and things like that, but you're especially in a city, right? And you have all these high expenses, you don't have an extra, I think in total, like 35, 40,000, whatever amount these programs come out to be, to just spend just because you want to learn. I think that's also privilege, right?
It's education privilege and leisure privilege. Like this is what people do on their weekends in their free time.
Yes.
If you're a masochist, but yeah.
So you don't really do that. So I feel like that's why you don't see many of us in it.
Yeah, that's fair. So what is it that you do with all of this? I mean, I hear you sort of like changing some systems that you're involved in. But what is sort of the essence of your work? What kind of work do you do? Who do you work with? What projects are you involved in?
Well, when you mentioned that, the first thing that came up to me was when I was a board member at the National Association of Social Workers. And that experience, I was there for maybe about 3 to 5 years. I'm not sure, is a blur. But I feel, and during that time, they were, this is not politically correct at all. They were challenging like the prisons, like Rikers Island here in New York, and they need to close it and all these things. And as those conversations were taking place in my head, I'm like, you're gonna close one and they're gonna try to open 10 more. Are we thinking about the bigger picture? So while these conversations are taking place, I was like, well, how much do these prisons make? Because we are in a space in a capitalist society that human are not worth as much as what these places are bringing in, how much money they're bringing in. And I bought it during one of the board meetings. I said, you know what, this is all nice talk and it sounds really good, but how many of you actually invest in the prison system? Right? Everybody looked at me like I was crazy. But then I said, well, what we're going against is actually this bigger thing that is run by a machine. And we're trying to be as humanistic, and we definitely empathic, and all those things are coming up. But have we thought that this can actually, you close one place down and 10 more will open up? And that kind of the pushback received, I was just like, yeah, this is not working for me as to what the traditional social work or what we're pushing for. We need to be able to find a way how we can be aligned and as meaningful in a capitalist society that really doesn't care about human emotions and the trauma and all those things. And then when I worked at a hospital setting and at the clinic and then at a chronic conditions, I used to run a chronic conditions program for a network of community health centers, and everybody, the clients that we was serving looked like me. And it allowed me to, the connections that I was making with the patients was not the traditional therapy. And, you just no facial expression, the engagement is different. I am not that. I am a person that engages. I'm a person that laughs out loud. We curse in sessions and all this. So I wanted, when I decided to start my practice, I wanted to focus on people that look like me, the working class and immigrants that can connect to the person that was across from them, because we've had very similar experiences, without feeling judged. That would have a space where they can express themselves whichever way, not with a cookie cutter way of how you're supposed to be a patient or a client and how I'm supposed to be a therapist. And I feel that when I started my practice, it was very scary because the talk was, or the pushback from colleagues, and that's like, in the traditional workplace, work environment was like, you're going to give up all your benefits, and what if you don't get any clients, and that's not fixed money. And so the fear that was trying to be pushed on me.
They're really supportive there.
Oh, absolutely.
Gotta love that.
My comeback used to be, well, I have all these good benefits that if I continue to be here, I'm going to have to really use, because I'm going to end up in the hospital with the stress that I'm experiencing. And I started my practice, and I already knew the insurance world, and it's like, I'm going to accept insurance. So instead of opening my practice in Wall Street or in the city to be charging all that money, it's like, no, I'm going to offer services with people's health insurance. And it's going to look the way I look. It's going to be authentic, and it's going to be challenging. It's going to be culturally sensitive, right? That's the word, but it's going to be culturally welcoming. Sessions are in Spanglish, right? Clients, when they are sharing their experience and they're challenging their beliefs, their cultural beliefs, their family beliefs, they are doing it in a language that is fitting to them, in a
Right.
dialect that's fitting to them, where they don't have to, when they're talking, I'm like, are you intellectualizing this right now because you feel like that's the wording I want to hear? Or is this how you really talk to your friend? So you see a big shift take place when they're actually talking to themselves the way they would normally talk, like, ooh, I didn't know that was going to hit that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
So coping and dealing, I'm trying to cope with this. Is that the word you use? Or try to deal with this shit, right? So being able to have clients go back and forth and realize the role language plays in it, the role how they present themselves, and how to challenge themselves to learn how to trust what they're experiencing, I feel has allowed me to have pretty good success in my practice, where I have clients that I want you to meet with my tia because my tia needs somebody like you. And I want you to meet with mi prima because mi prima needs this and this. And I talk to her about you, and I need you to meet with my daughter. So that's what it's become, where my clients, I see my clients, but I also get to see family members. I become part of their family structure when I'm not even physically there. But they'll tell them, you got to go see Nancy. when do you go see your therapist, Nancy? Because she needs to talk to you about this.
So you're like a family resource.
Yeah. And I wasn't expecting that, but I feel that being able to utilize my Gestalt training, being able to utilize my EMDR, being able to utilize coherent breathing, the daring way, I've been able to combine those with the spirituality, our defenses, vulnerability, survival that my clients have to experience, and allow myself to be part of the process with them. One of the things I learned in Gestalt was when clients are experiencing certain things and embody sensations, I was also experiencing them and I didn't know what that was. So they were able to teach me, like, this is what you can do with it. And I use it on a regular basis with clients, and I feel like it deepens the work.
And so you have like this huge network of clients,
Mhm.
but do you feel like you're part of some kind of a community or network of practitioners as well?
Yes, I would say my classmates
Mhm.
from Gestalt, we are very,
That's like a whopping 7 people though.
yes.
Okay.
Any,
7 people can do a lot and mean a lot, but
yes, yes. And you know, there's some extensions to that, but key folks is, hey, this is happening. So we're able to, we have our group text, we'll meet up, like, hey, this is going on. Has anybody experienced this? Does anybody have any openings? I'm thinking about this and this. What are your thoughts? And, you know, we are able to bounce ideas off each other. When I did a cultural and diversity training. It was very different than the DEI that's taking place. Like DEI is more intellectual. Mine is more emotionally based and trauma based for whoever, because we all play a role in it. And the people I went to is like, hey guys, I have this. They're all white. Like, what are your thoughts about this? Because this is what I want to tap into. So I feel that that's been key. And the same goes for EMDR. I am part of their SIG, which is the culture and diversity something SIG. And we get to talk about how this impacts our community and how we can utilize our trauma training to be supportive. So I have 2 groups that I feel I can tap into fairly easily, including the Daring Way as well. There's another small group in Daring Way.
so those are some of the resources that you do have. And you've talked about some of the challenges that you ran into in different systems. What about within the Gestalt world or practice? What kind of challenges have you run into there?
Microaggressions, racist statements, which I was able to speak back in all of them, which I'm very proud of that, and challenge it. I also feel that even within that, the teachings is not culturally diverse. So you have to find your way as like, well, how does that fit for me? Right? How would that fit for my client? But that was the initial experiences was that racism and microaggressions, not on purpose, right? I don't think it was purposeful because they were not aware, which is actually how this whole systemic racism works,
Right.
but definitely impactful.
It is. And, you know, what I've noticed as I've been doing these interviews and also working and having trained in Mexico is that it's also colonial. Like there's just this sort of imposition. And
Yes.
it's just like this truth which is told.
And
It's
you
like,
got to believe it because I told you.
wait a minute.
Yeah.
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 And sometimes it just ends up being things which are completely alien
Yes.
to the culture that's being spoken to. It's like, that's not relational. That's not even dialogical. That's one-sided.
And even when you said it's spoken to, not spoken with,
Exactly.
right? It's not really engaging. So I feel that was challenging, but I one of the things that you always say, like I put my little adobo on it and make it work for me. And my clients are going to benefit from it, whichever way I can find to have the training that I have and the time I've invested in it, so that way they can benefit from it.
Mhm.
And I benefit from it, and my family benefits from it, because it's
Right.
become part of who I am.
Yeah, and I mean, I appreciate that you take that for yourself and for your clients, but do you think that the system that you've gone through has been able to benefit from you?
Well, that's a good question.
Like, do you feel that your impact has been received?
I believe for my classmates, our crew, yes. Before I left the center, we have started that our last intensive. It was one of my classmates that told me, you need to share exactly what you are experiencing, because I was experiencing it at all levels. From my workplace, I felt that I was being treated like, middle management usually looks like me, upper management doesn't look like me at all, it's all white. And I was feeling used. And then at my training, I was the only one of me. So it was just like, and some like microaggressions, not on purpose, being, they were trying to connect to me with the belief of another culture in mind, instead of just, no, this is my culture. I have nothing to do with that culture. So I was able to discuss it during one of our intensives. And it was very deliberate. And from there, we ended up having a meeting to have a group that will focus on people of color, right? And how do we undo this? And that group, from my understanding, is still in effect, but I chose not to be part of it, because I was like, I am not gonna be the Black guide for this. So y'all gotta figure it out and bring in the support that you feel is needed, because I'm not here to teach you how to teach when this is something that we're talking about awareness and accountability and everything else that comes along with it. Then you should take responsibility for the way you are, or
Mhm.
how it's coming across. So I think in that way, and that was quite a while back, it was impactful, but I focus more on the power that I do have, and the power of being able to touch, and this is how I can cause change, as opposed to the power that I am trying to touch and it's all this coming at me. I'm like, well, I can chip away. And this is how
Yeah.
I can chip away, right? Because then that whole ask can just become so intimidating and can make you feel defeated, as opposed to if I chip away little by little, it makes like, okay, this can work. Oh, this expands, and then this expands, right? So you're meeting with a client, and what we are experiencing in our sessions, they start to feel empowered. They are sharing it with their friends and family. Now my one interaction has touched 50 or 100 people. So that's how I've been able to take the work I do, like view it from that angle.
And so what would you say are some of the satisfactions that you've experienced? I mean, do you want to share anything more specific about some of those particular places where you were able to chip away, or moments that you connected with someone?
I would say when clients actually come back and say, I'm so annoyed that I can't turn this mindfulness off. Or when we are having a session and they're able to identify. So I was able to utilize this. I was able to be mindful. I brought down my defenses because I saw them coming up, and I allowed myself to be vulnerable, and I kicked ass. Like, oh, how was that feeling? It felt empowering. It felt good. So that type of thing allows me to like, yeah, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. When it comes to places that I worked in and created or assisted in creating programs and hiring the staff to support the patient population, and hearing from them and saying like, this is still going strong, right? And we were able to do this and this with this client and their A1C levels dropped. So I feel those type of things allow me to continue doing what I'm doing when I facilitate groups and they're actually coming back with whatever assignments from the group they were supposed to do within the 2-week time span. Like I tried it and it worked. Now, how can I continue to do this? Because I really like the feeling and I need to fight this.
So another question for you is, how would you say that your involvement specifically with the Gestalt community or that kind of practice has affected you as a person?
I feel that it has made me be able to leave room to have gray areas and I don't like the unknown, but to be able to cope and manage it well in the unknown, like, okay, right, to be able to trust my abilities with the support of my colleagues and the support of what I learned is allow me to have some trust, like, no, yeah, this is, I can definitely do this. Whatever I plan on doing, I have the skill set, I have the not only the knowledge, but when I say knowledge as a whole person, I'm able to manage this or respond to this in a healthy way. I can manage the unknowns without fear being the one running the show. Does that answer the question?
Okay. So, sorry. Hold on 2 seconds. I'm so sorry. I'm a mess. And so you've told me a little bit about the projects that a fair bit actually about the projects that you are involved in. But where would you say that you see yourself going in the future? Like, what are you reaching towards or trying to build from this?
I am enjoying what I'm doing now. I always picture that eventually I'm going to have some space either in Puerto Rico or in Costa Rica, places I love. Puerto Rico first, right? Because it's my home. And in the process of being able to buy property, have enough land, and have wellness retreats for people that look like us. It's not common, right? For it to be able to make those things affordable and not only have the experience with nature, but we are at home in their home, to be able to offer that there, primarily to the people there.
Which is
services
very different than the wellness retreats as like destination tourism for people who look like me.
Yeah, very different. So that's one of the things that I have it, and I have it pictured in my head, like, oh, this is what it's gonna look like. But I enjoy this. And expanding on it, that would be what I would do. And I am, as I'm searching, and I'm like, okay, what are some good areas? And I think this would be something that people can definitely benefit from. And it can be where it will be retreat for like trauma and having a set of people come and we can do EMDR. But as you're receiving this, you're also in a safe space. So that's been the key image that I've been getting.
That's pretty amazing. And specifically in Puerto Rican culture, how would you say that this whole idea of therapy fits in? Because I'm sitting here in Mexico, and I mean, like, every culture really does have their take on what this means to go see your terapeuta, your loquero, your whatever.
Exactly. Voy a ver ese loquero, a ver qué me va a decir.
A ver qué te hace, a ver si te arregla.
Yes, you're supposed to be the fixer. When I speak with my family in Puerto Rico, they're usually like, Nancy con sus cosas, like Nancy and her thoughts and the way she views things. Like, so it's gonna be, I know it's gonna be a challenge. So it's being able to see what can just touch that one one point of curiosity, like, let me go see what's over there. So I think that will be key, being able to build some or entice something that, like, yeah, you should go see her. She's pretty cool and she doesn't talk in a way that you won't understand her. So I think dialect will play a role, understanding of the community norms, being able to engage with the immediate community. So they know, like, no, tú puedes ir para ver, you can go see her. I think that will be key. But when I check,
trust, right?
yeah, because when I checked online, let me see how many private therapists there are in Puerto Rico. I was like, ooh, it was really bad. It looked really bad. It didn't look like it was easily available. I've asked people regarding, what insurances are accepted. You're a private practitioner. They're like, bueno, it's very like iffy kind of thing. So I think that will be a challenge, but I'm up for it.
It sounds like you are, for sure. Up for it and kind of into it. So
yeah.
And it's interesting, in a little pause that we took there, you were talking about your online work. Do you want to say anything about that, about how you see it as a way of working going forward?
I feel like it's allowed me to have a more of a intimacy with clients, where I am able to see what the day-to-day life is like, and we're able to apply live what is being practiced in therapy. So I feel like it's given an added layer of traditional social worker and therapy, and now we're in the house, right? You get to see what's going on in the home, and, well, maybe you can try this, maybe you can try that. Clients may say, yeah, I start getting a little messy, or I start doing this when when I'm lacking in motivation, when I'm starting to feel depressed. You see it, like, hey, I noticed you said this last time and I saw that over there. What's going on? They're like, Nancy. And then we can work from there. It's been, for the most part, clients may feel much safer in their home. In other spaces, not so much. We've had to find different ways. But for the most part, I feel it's opened them up more to be more receiving, to feel comfortable with disruptions when they take place, and come back to challenge how they would normally respond to children or even partners. Like, hey, what just happened there? I noticed a change in tone and your body language. Like, oh, I'm feeling annoyed. Do they know you're feeling annoyed? So let's
practice. It's like when somebody comes home and you watch the person jump.
Yes.
It's like, oh,
what's happened? Yeah. So it allows you. Do you remember that show was The Nanny, where she had a lady that comes in and teaches them how to discipline their children and how to parent them? I feel like that kind of takes place. And it also shows, it shows your clients how you live, what your home looks like, what the day-to-day, what are the disruptions, when there's construction taking place, how do you respond in that? So I think it's been a positive twist to this pandemic.
Yeah, I enjoyed what you said. That's why I asked you to bring it up. Speaking of interruptions and things that happened, getting messy there.
Yeah.
So where also do you think, not only yourself, but where do you think Gestalt can go from where we are now? Like, you've seen some of the shortcomings, some of, these learning opportunities that I think are pretty generalized in most of Gestalt. Mm-hmm. So where do you think it could go?
I'm trying to see what comes up for me as you ask that, because I think it first starts with the gatekeepers, right? And them being able to acknowledge the blind spots that take place in the teachings and the text that we receive and how it's taught, because it's just through one lens. And I feel once they're able to own that without judging themselves or shaming themselves, I think it may be able to leave room to cause a lot of change. and how
Yeah,
it's
when you
delivered.
said gatekeepers, I mean, thought about people being honest about the restrictions on who even gets in the door.
Yes, yes. And I also feel like that starts off from master's level programs that are very antiquated, right? And it's very Western driven. And the majority of people that are creating these curriculums down to the books you read is white men. And that plays if we're trying to provide services through a white man's lens, we're never going to be able to do the work that we want to do or work that's actually going to cause change. We have to adjust it and acknowledge it in order for it to be different and be more impactful.
I think that's really important, is that, yeah, there are, white people who know something, but just even recognizing that it's not even the global majority. So how is that possibly
Are
going
we
to
the
be
experts?
how can we generalize from this when we're a minority and a privileged minority?
Yes.
It's, yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's different. It reminded me of one of our classes where the professor was talking about, childhood experience and you're going to get your lollipop. And although my class didn't look like me, but some people were from other countries that were still white, but they were from other countries, with people that identify in different genders and we were like, lollipop. My household was not on lollipops. We were limber. Limber is like the icy. Like, I'm going for an icy. Or everybody's like, well, we did this. So the lady couldn't adjust. She just could not adjust to what the audience, which was our class, was trying to find a connection to what she wanted us to do. Like, no, that's not walking down the street with your mom holding your hand and going to, no, I'm just going to go to my abuela across the street or next door and get my limben. So it's even that was very challenging. And at that moment, we would laugh, but it's like, I need help. There needs to be some work on this.
It's like, haha, no.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think if there were more people in the room who weren't laughing along, that
Yeah.
would make a big difference.
That would make a big difference. It would. Also, the belief that our first response to the unknown is fear. Like, that's not, I don't feel that is global, because I've gone to other countries. And when we were like the only ones of color, it was not fear at all. It was like, we want to see. It was curiosity. And that
I love the way you described your migration process at the beginning. You're like, "Ooh, cool opportunities. Let's go. I
yeah.
can adapt to things."
Yes. Yes. But in our trainings, it's more the initial response is fear. It's like, no, that may be from a power perspective because you're afraid to lose what you feel you have, because you're there to take control. For a lot of people that don't look like you, it's like, let's see what's there. Right. And I think that makes a very big difference. So there needs to be some self-inventory needs to take place, and need to challenge whatever fears that is being experienced. Like, you're actually going to gain so much more.
Yeah, gain so much more, but yeah, I don't want to talk over what you're saying, but I'm imagining, like, there are some white plants, and I include myself in this, that need to get put into smaller containers. Like, we need to learn how to take up less space.
Yes. Yes. One of the trainings I did where it was a culture and diversity training, like empathy and diversity training. One of the white males was discussing, like, now in spaces, he doesn't want to take up space. He doesn't know how to respond. And I challenged him in that. I said, well, you don't want to take up space, but you not trying to take up space is actually taking up the most space. I need you to be able to talk and share and acknowledge. That way you can become part of, and you can utilize that to cause change. Because the more you want to not take up space, you're still the white man in the room. You already have it. So let's acknowledge it instead of trying to hide away or shame from it.
Well, I think this basically means that I would really love to learn from you when you are doing some of these trainings for the Gestalt community, because I think there's a lot that we do need to
Yeah,
sit down and shut up and pay for, because I know if it's going to be your job, it needs to be your job, not
yes,
something that you are just expected to do. So I
yes.
really do appreciate what you've shared and the time that you've taken to share this with me.
Thank you.
And I'm wondering if there's anything that you would like to add, sort of as a final thought, or another piece of you that you wanted to bring in.
Separate from, I say, continuing to challenge ourselves, to challenge our existing beliefs, to challenge cultural norms that a lot of times may not be working for us because they've been influenced or pressed upon us that have made it cultural kind of thing. I think it will be very helpful for all of us, and allowing ourselves to learn how to trust what we have, because our body has so much wisdom that if we actually start to listen to it and trust that we'll be able to differentiate between fear, guilt, shame, and no, that's my gut, and it's for the most part is always right. So I think that can be something we can all work on.
Well, thank you. Is this an okay place to leave this for now for you?
Absolutely. Yes, it was a pleasure.
Okay, thank you.